The next stage of making Bitcoin something that's in the hands of not just millions, but hundreds of millions of people is to put it into regular apps that just need a way to actually transfer value, that need a way to be able to move money, not have to sacrifice self-custody, have a really clean user experience, and you don't need a whole team dedicated to implementing Lightning. You could do it with one dev over a weekend, had a working proof of concept in Cake Wallet. It's something that anyone can do nowadays.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Shoot the Breeze. Today we have Seth on the show from Cake Wallet. Seth is the COO of Cake. If you want to introduce yourself and introduce Cake.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Danny. Super excited to chat through this. I am, like you said, COO of Cake Wallet. My journey is kind of woven all throughout the Bitcoin, Monero, and Lightning ecosystem. First as a kind of a critic and a hater of a lot of what Lightning had to offer. And eventually coming full circle, started working in the Bitcoin space in 2022 and then had the chance to jump over and join Cake Wallet and start kind of leading the day-to-day there. So that's been a blast. Cake Wallet, we're a self-custodial, totally free and open source Bitcoin, Monero, Lightning, Ethereum wallet. Our focus is making payments really easy, making privacy really easy, and of course, making self-custody really easy.
So you mentioned about privacy. That's a passion. Obviously, that's something you're very passionate about. Why was Lightning has been a consideration for both in your career and for Cake?
Lightning has always offered a solution. I say offered a solution. I think the solution itself has not actually been realistic until very recently. Was basically being promised to fix privacy, to fix payments, to fix fees, to make everything fast and just like do everything that Bitcoin ever needed it to do. Unfortunately, it's normally not how technologies work, and it was not instantly the solution to all of those problems. But it was very clear to me early on that Lightning needed to work for Bitcoin to be successful. And Cake Wallet, we've wanted to implement Lightning for years now. Really kicked off that process in earnest. I think it was late 2023, early 2024, with you guys specifically trying to implement Bitcoin Lightning via Greenlight. But it was really clear to me both in using it before I joined the team and using other wallets that use Greenlight, and then after I joined the team and using the internal beta, it just wasn't there. And that was not because of Breez, that wasn't because of Blockstream even, but it was because it was trying to fix the problem in the wrong way, in trying to offload some of the responsibility, but not fixing the core problems with Lightning, which mainly were liquidity and channel management. And so right when I joined Cake, like I think it was the first week I was there, I said, nope, we're not shipping this. And we're going to go back to the drawing board. And then right after that, right at the end of 2024, early 2025, the Spark team actually reached out to me and asked if Cake wanted to take a look at it, look through the docs before they were released. And it really caught my interest there.
Amazing. So basically that's the journey, right? Lightning's roles changed. Once you guys have seen Spark and then kind of tested it, how did it move forward from there?
Spark was just very clean, very simple, had an easy to understand trust model. And chatting with, everyone under the sun, trying to dig in to see what was actually the right solution for us, paired well with y'all announcing that you were actually going to be working on a Spark SDK. So obviously we already had a relationship, I already knew y'all, knew Roy and had chatted with him quite a lot. And the fit was very clear that not only could we use Spark, which I thought was the right technology for us, but you guys through the Breez SDK would make the implementation far easier than it would be if we try to take the direct SDK from Spark and then layer on all of the other pieces that go with Lightning. Because even when you simplify the actual channels, liquidity, etc., there's also all the other things like LNURL and Lightning addresses and Bolt 12 and how you're going to handle invoices and all these pieces to the Lightning standard that have to be handled. And you guys just kind of handle those seamlessly.
And this kind of neatly brings me to the integration process. Working with Lightning has been inherently complex for both users and builders. How do you compare the experience from in the past to maybe the experience that you guys had at Cake integrating this time?
Yeah, like I had mentioned, I explored pretty much every route that we could take at Cake, and like that was all the way from implementing LDK, which is the most technical and most feature rich, but also the most complex thing, and then trying to figure out like, are we going to hire a team worth of people to implement and maintain this over the long run? And ultimately, when we just started looking at y'all's SDK, again, it was very early that we jumped in and tested it out, but I just put one dev on it while we were at a conference. We had a weekend where we were just kind of co-working over the weekend as the conference was going on. And over a weekend, he had a working build that made and received payments. Obviously, it was simple. We didn't have all of the other stuff that we would add on before we actually released it to the public. But just the ability to have a working proof of concept over a weekend with mainnet Lightning support was nuts compared to what the implementation experience would have been in the past. But again, when we're not a large company that can dedicate a whole team to this, or where we're not a Lightning only wallet where our whole team is going to be doing Lightning stuff, we don't have the luxury of dedicating 5, 6, 7 engineers to the implementation and maintenance. And that's where this ability to implement it over a weekend and then obviously iterate and improve, build out a whole new UI around it like we've done, all those things really coalesce into it being just almost trivial from an implementation perspective compared to what Lightning has always been in the past. And that makes a huge difference because it lets us dedicate much more time to the user interface, to the user experience, to providing a broad ecosystem of tools that actually let you use your Lightning to do things, rather than just the bare bones implementation itself.
And this is actually quite a neat segue. Again, Cake is a multi-coin wallet. You have multiple cryptocurrencies within it. How has the integration fared, maybe even in comparison to other cryptocurrencies and or alongside them?
I would say it was easier than the vast majority of cryptocurrencies. And we've implemented everything from Monero to Zcash to Ethereum to Arbitrum. Like we have a broad set of cryptocurrencies because we're trying to meet people where they are and give them access to easy self-custody and hopefully pull them back into Bitcoin. But then how it pairs with the others, I think something that honestly I didn't really think through or expect going into it was the ability for people to move in and out of Lightning from other cryptocurrencies is as good or better than the experience of making swaps in any other cryptocurrency. And I know in the Bitcoin space, a lot of people are kind of like Bitcoin only, or at least talk that way. Most of them aren't actually, but most of them talk that way. When you're looking at real users, the vast majority of people in the cryptocurrency space are using multiple cryptocurrencies. They want to be able to swap back and forth to have what they need when they need it. And Lightning providing the fastest and simplest way to swap between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies means that a lot of people, I think, will not only be driven to use things like tokens on Bitcoin now with Spark, but also to be able to save in Bitcoin and then transfer that Bitcoin through Lightning into whatever other cryptocurrency they want. A common use case for our users is going from Bitcoin as savings to using Monero for spending because it has fantastic privacy properties, has broad merchant adoption, and being able to do that in literally 30 seconds from pressing send to receiving Monero in your Monero wallet with almost zero fees is just, it's hard to beat that user experience. And it's often better than even EVM chains that make a lot of compromises in terms of trust or in terms of centralization. You get a lot of the same advantages, but you're still using Lightning and Bitcoin under the hood, which is just fantastic.
1 million users. You mentioned about making an easy experience for everyone, but with the principles of privacy and self-custody kind of baked into the product. Are you guys hoping to see Bitcoin as a medium of exchange? Are you hoping to see it more interoperable with other cryptocurrencies, or all of the above? I assume it's all of the above, but how would you primarily see it?
So the goal for me is always that we continue to pull people back into Bitcoin by making it an extremely useful tool, not only for savings, but also as a medium of exchange. Like I know Roy talks constantly about this idea of making moving value as easy as possible. And the more we fragment and use more and more cryptocurrencies, the more complex that movement of value becomes. Because if I have Tether on this chain and you have Tether on that chain, or you like this random meme coin or whatever, it gets harder and harder for us to actually transfer value because we value different things. But if we can pull people back into Bitcoin because making those payments are actually easy, they don't actually require giving up self-custody, they do actually have strong privacy, and we can easily swap it in and out of other things that we want to at a tap, things like swapping into and out of stable coins. I think that will continue to pull users back into Bitcoin because the ultimate goal for me and for what we're building at Cake Wallet is to get people using freedom money so that they can benefit the most from the technology that has been built. Not that they can bet on things or speculate, but rather that we can continue to pull them into things that are going to be censorship resistant, that are going to be privacy preserving, and that will ultimately help provide human freedom and human flourishing.
Amazing. And so for Cake right now, obviously I've seen the launch. I believe the launch has been a success with your users due to the feedback that we're seeing, which is awesome. how do you see this growing over the next couple of months? And what are your maybe hopes for where this goes?
Yeah, I mean, a big focus for us is going to be continuing to onboard other partners that we have already in the ecosystem into Lightning. That's something that we've already pushed really hard on. And I know we've gotten a couple partners using the Breez SDK to implement Lightning themselves. Traditionally, again, because Lightning has been so complex to implement, a lot of these swap providers, a lot of these decentralized exchanges have had no interest in using it because it was just so hard for them to actually implement and manage. But that also has changed. And I think that's something that has been really powerful, is that it lets us unlock the rest of the ecosystem for Lightning users. Like you said, we hit 1 million users recently, have been barreling past that over the past few months, doubled users over the course of 2025, and by far the most requested missing feature in Cake Wallet has been Lightning.
What would you say to other developers, product teams, builders who are looking for options out there? Why should they use Breez? And you've got quite a long journey with us, so you have an element of bias to that as well. But like, yeah, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing would just be that Lightning should not just be for wallet apps. And I think there's so much unexplored territory in terms of putting Lightning into other things that just need a way to actually transfer value, that need a way to be able to move money, but don't need to be a full-fledged wallet. And I think a lot of times the technical complexity of Lightning has been so much that only teams that are building wallets have had enough people to actually manage and implement Lightning itself. But the next stage of really making Bitcoin something that is in the hands of not just millions, but hundreds of millions of people is to put it into regular apps where you just need to send money, but maybe you don't want to send Facebook dollars or whatever the stable coin du jour is of the apps that you use, but instead be able to do it directly over Bitcoin, not have to sacrifice self-custody, have a really clean user experience, and you don't need a whole team dedicated to implementing Lightning. You could do it with very straightforward. Like I said, one dev over a weekend had a working proof of concept in Cake Wallet. It's something that anyone can do nowadays.
You've said where you hinted at where you want to get to, but where's your gut telling you that we'll be? Let's say like 5 years. Where would you like Cake? Where would you like the whole ecosystem to be?
I think the thing that has to happen is we have to get past this idea that Bitcoin is just digital gold, that it's just something for me to store wealth in. It's very much a financially privileged, like Western view that's normal for us. Like when I talk to people here in the US, almost never is there any interest in something that they can use to make censorship resistant payments or to be able to transfer value. They just want to know, is this going to be better or worse than my current 401k portfolio? Like there's a lot of a broken understanding of what Bitcoin is. And while it can be that, it obviously can be a good tool for storing your wealth in. I think that is just scratching the surface of what Bitcoin can be, especially when it comes to actually like setting people free to being free to money. Saving in your 401k as an ETF, it's not free to money. It's not bad, but it's not free to money. So I think the biggest thing for me is now that it's much, much easier to approach actually using Bitcoin day to day, because on-chain has all of its limitations. We touched on a little bit. Lightning solves many of those, but also being able to bring stablecoins back into the Bitcoin ecosystem and under the Bitcoin umbrella, I think can really unlock the ability for people to use this stuff day to day. That's going to start in the global south. It's not going to start in the west. We're going to be late adopters, unfortunately, in terms of using Bitcoin as freedom money. But that felt need will come. But first, really starting with helping people get out of custodial wallets, get out of Binance Wallet, get out of all these things that are predatory and are risky, and help them to be able to finally take self-custody and make a difference when it comes to their freedom and flourishing over the coming years.
Okay, well then I have one final question is where can folks go to learn more about Cake, and is there anything else that you want to share about what's coming up?
So to learn more about Cake, really simple, cakewallet.com. You can see everything that we have going on there. You can also find our other apps like Cupcake there, where we make it easy for you to turn any old phone into a hardware wallet. We're always working on fun science projects that turn into really useful tools at the end of the day. But the last thing I think I would leave people with is just don't settle for the status quo. Whatever you're used to right now, whatever you're using right now, be willing to keep trying new things, learning new things and giving a chance to tools that you wouldn't expect would be useful. I think like we talked about, a lot of people kind of have written off Lightning. Either they never actually tried it and they just heard bad things, or they have tried it, gotten burned, and moved on. So yeah, I think that would be the main thing is come back to Lightning. It's time.
It's time. There we go. So Seth, it's been a pleasure chatting to you about all of this. For folks who haven't yet downloaded Cake, download it, go and experiment, and test instant Bitcoin within their app, and we'll have this all out and everyone can see all the latest with you now. So anyway, cheers, mate. And for everyone else, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Danny.